Hi, my name is Barry Clifford. I spent 10 years in one of Ireland's industrial institutions. At the age of 5 years old, an aunt came and left us up into an industrial school in Athlone, left my brother and myself there. And because of that abandonment, the shock that all I knew before was suddenly gone, I suffered a stroke and ended up in the hospital for about 3 months learning how to walk again. So I spent 2 years in that particular institution and ended up in Galway in the 2nd of June 1964. I actually remember the actual date. That we'd be roused from our bed each morning at 7 o'clock, children aged from 6 to 16, by pretty much a demented savage to get out of bed, go up and have a quick wash around the ears, brush your teeth. When that was over, we were down there to have what we classed as breakfast, but it really was just fit for pigs. And we would have lumpy porridge, green mould bread, cup of tea, and you'd go to play in the yard for a while. And there was a traveller child called Tommy Cleary, and he had a club foot. And Tommy, our daily routine in the mess hall, would have our dinner, supper, whatever. And this day, this particular sadistic Christian brother had something on his mind if we weren't appreciative enough of the sloppy food or the bad food he was giving us. So he just had a rant. So he had us all line up and gave us 2 slaps in each hand with a big heavy leather, which they carried around with themselves all times. But somehow Tommy escaped the beating. Then that was noticed. Tommy's a very slight kid. He weighed, to me about 50, 60 pounds. He always seemed malnourished. Well, we all were malnourished. But in this particular day, he discovered that Tommy had escaped the beating, and he went completely nuts and picked this big man, Christian brother, picked this slight child up by his ear and just held him up aloft, straight out with his hand, and kept ranting away at us, forgetting that this boy was actually dangling at the end of his hand, and the blood just started pumping out through his ear. And when he eventually figured out that there was somebody at the end of his hand, he just got that little bundle and just threw it against a concrete wall, and Tommy's head just bounced off it, went down to a crumpled heap. And we were already used to ordinary violence, but even that managed to shock us that day, because we just couldn't believe. And no, we were afraid even to make a move towards him. He was just left there. Whatever long it took him to recover, that was it. And that was just an ordinary day in the life. If I seem to be making a smile, it's almost nervous laughter or nervous smile, because I still can't believe I was even in that place. They were either going to beat you into submission or they would actually sign you into a mental hospital. My brother was one of those, Michael, he was one of those children that actually was signed in at the age of 15, and because they couldn't beat him down. So one day in the yard, we're all out playing, and suddenly this car pulled up, big station wagon, out jumped 2 Christian brothers and 3 guys in white coats, and they bundled him into the car. One Christian brother took off driving, and he was hemmed in the back seat of that car, taken off to that particular Ballinasloe Mental Hospital. While he was there, he was offered a job as a male nurse, when they realised that there was nothing wrong with him, and they asked Christian brothers to take him back. He refused to go back anyway, and they refused to take him back. So he was sent to a halfway house in Salt Hill, and I decided then and there I was going to get the man that signed that piece of paper, who was the manager of that place, called Stephen Mitchell. And I set about a plan to make up a fight. I engineered a fight 3 or 4 months later, and it worked. He fell into the trap, and I broke his jaw and took off running. And I was able to get my brother out of the halfway house. I pretended I was older, but to sign him out, he had to be over 18. I was 15, but they pretended to believe me, and so they let me sign him out. So we started off in a small junkie apartment in Salt Hill, and to survive even then, we had no relations to speak of or anything like that. So we just broke into phone boxes, weighing machines, anywhere we could make a few euros, or back then pounds, shillings and pence, to supplement whatever else we could make. And we just lived in our wits. We robbed vegetable patches and never hurt nobody, touched nobody, because nobody gave a fiddlers. And other guys' experiences was much more worse than that, much more violent. And so we all had to figure out how to get around this. We slept, a lot of these children slept in doss houses. For me, I slept 2 weeks in a hay barn at the back of that prison before I even figured out how to go forward, because there was nowhere else to go. When I met my father first, I found him in a pub. He was homeless at the time, but I was told he goes to this pub. So I went to the pub. I got lucky the first time. I had to introduce myself to him. He didn't know who I was, and I just told him I was supposed to be your son. But when he realised that I was his son, he made for the door, because he thought I was going to beat him up, because my brother did exactly that, and I wouldn't have blamed him. But I just curious to see who this guy was. My life was always full of adventure and curiosity. And this was no different. It's like some kind of movie I just happened to be a part of. And anyway, we drank that day. We drank a few different other days, and I accepted him that he was this chronic alcoholic, accepted him what he was, which is to me probably the healthiest way to do anything, because you can't blame history or the choices that your parents or your grandparents made before you. You have to make the best choices for yourself. And I realised that even at a young age. Met my mother 2 weeks later. She came up to where I was staying, and because she got my address off the father, and when I actually met her, in that couple of seconds it takes to size up somebody, I made a mental note that she was going to borrow money off me, and that's exactly what she done. I gave her some, a few pounds to get home and buy herself cigarettes or wine, whatever she needed for the week. But again, I just adopted the same strategy. I was not going to be parents to them, because they were never parents to me. It wasn't an act of revenge. That was how they played their cards with life. My cards was going to be played as much differently as I could, because to me it's the healthiest way. And you learn this stuff by accidents. People blame parents, they blame the uncle who did wrong to you, or the aunt, but ultimately, you got to put away the toys too, and you got to stand up and just figure out your way through life and find happiness wherever you can and keep laughing all the way.